When you look back, what was the biggest mindset shift that you had to make to start thinking like a practice owner rather than just a clinician?
So one of the big steps I can very vividly recall was having a very good PA. That was a massive step. So getting a secretary, PA, whatever you want to call them, who actually works for the growth of my private practice. That was one very big thing that I had to do, which I think has made a very, very big difference. Yeah, that's one thing I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess regarding different things, so there were a lot of questions here. I'm trying to think what makes the most sense for you specifically. I guess in the early days, informally, in the early days, what actually helped you get that first steady stream of private patients, whatever channel it might have been. So yeah, in the early days, what actually helped you get your first steady stream of private patients?
Quality, I think. I think one of the things so the two things, when people start a private practice, I think one of the first things is I have to treat these people differently. And that actually is not the case. You're actually supposed to treat them exactly the way you treat them on the NHS. And I'm making the assumption that when you're treating people on the NHS to the best possible standards. So it's so important that you don't see private patients as treating them separately or treating them differently because you've been paying money. You should be given exactly the same amount of value. In fact, I remember very well one of my senior colleagues said, do your NHS job properly and your private practice will grow. So that's one very important thing, is treating the patients exactly what you do on the NHS. And that quality is very important. I get it that we may not have as much time to give the patients on the NHS as we do privately, but we should be actually giving them that same quality. That's number one. Number two is the quality. And the question I want to ask myself every time when somebody comes to see me privately is, would that person be happy to come back and see me again? So whatever I can do to make sure that that person really feels that I'm interested in their health, I'm interested in what's going on, will they be happy to come back to see me again? And that's the second thing. So I really want to make sure I'm adding value to that patient's health to make sure that they're coming to see me. That value is because one person, they either keep your card or they tell a friend or they tell a relative or something and it grows, or they tell their GP, because the feedback they go back and tell their GP is so important too. So it's adding that quality to that patient's health.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess how important is reputation, or has reputation been, in growing your private practice, and how do you think that reputation is really built?
Same thing, surprisingly. It's built by how you treat the patients. It's great for the GPs and your colleagues to know you as a great colleague. That's very important for GPs and your colleagues to know that you're helpful when they refer patients to you, either on the NHS or privately. You build your reputation that way. But I think very importantly with the patients need to leave feeling that this person really cares about my health. And I think now it does look like, well, there are probably other things I can do. And yes, there are things that you can do, GP talks, advertising, all of that stuff. But I think reputation is mainly built by how you treat your patients, how you come across to GPs, and how you come across to your colleagues. It's so important that, those people, they do see that, yes, this person is really interested in patients' health. Yeah.
Yeah, understood. And have you seen a difference between being like a great specialist, consultant surgeon, and being visible enough for patients to actually find? So ask the question more formally. Have you seen a difference between just being like a great surgeon, specialist, consultant, and being visible enough for patients to actually find?
Well, yeah, they're two separate things. Being a great surgeon has nothing to do with visibility. You can be a great surgeon. I know some very great surgeons who are not visible. Visibility is all about putting yourself out there on social media, websites. It's so important. Yeah, so they're absolutely two completely different things. Unfortunately, we're not taught anything about business and advertising and all of that stuff in medical school. But yeah, completely two different things. Being a very good surgeon is completely different and our medical skill set does not in any way help to get us being seen. We do have to go out and meet people who help to improve our visibility.
Yeah, absolutely. And what do you think makes like one patient or a patient choose like one ENT consultant or any consultant over another one in like a competitive market, city, area? So I'll ask the question a bit more formally. What do you think makes a patient choose one consultant over another in a competitive market or city or area?
Surprisingly, you'd be surprised to hear the answers to that. One, a smile. They want somebody who they can relate to. They want somebody who looks humane, somebody. So a smile. I remember very well, one of the hospitals told me while I was putting up my picture, and they said, I need a smiley picture. So patients want a smiley picture. Number two, they want somebody who is going to listen to them. Many doctors, surgeons are very clever people, and they don't necessarily need to listen to patients for 15 minutes to know what the problem is. Many surgeons and doctors can listen to people for just 2 minutes and they know what the problem is. What patients don't want is they don't want you listening to them for 2 minutes. They want you to listen for everything they've got to say. So they want somebody who listens. So they go out there and they look at the reviews. And if they see reviews of people who they say, this person listened to me, that's the person they want. So they want a human person, somebody who is personable and somebody who's going to listen to them. Of course, the medical skills and the surgical skills are important, but surprisingly, I don't think patients, they really want somebody who they can relate to.
Yeah, completely agree. And from a patient perspective, what do you think builds trust before they even walk into the consultation?
I think many times they've already made up their mind even before they walk into the consulting room. And once again, I think it is how they see that first consultation. Is this person patient? Is this surgeon? Does he listen to me? I think that's very, very important. Patients decide when things go wrong. Patients decide whether it's their surgeon's fault or not, depending on how they perceive their surgeon or consultant. If they think that their consultant or surgeon is a very patient person and something goes wrong, they immediately decide that it's not his fault. And in similar vein, if they think that their consultant is always in a rush and is always hurried, when something goes wrong, the first thing they think is, probably when he was doing my operation, was very hurried and was in a rush. I think that trust is built by them having a consultant or a surgeon who they feel listens to them. I think that's very, very, very important. I think that's a very big measure with how they decide who they trust.
Yeah, absolutely. And what are the small things in that whole patient journey that you feel like most consultants overlook, but that actually make a really big difference?
One, so the front door, that's your PA. Come back to it again. That's very important. If you have a PA that is friendly, that is good, patients are impressed with that. The world is moving on. A lot of private patients want to be able to book appointments with ease. They want to be able to get in contact with their team with ease. So that's very important. They want very good communication. They don't want to send an email and they don't get a reply for 2 or 3 days. That is a real turnoff for patients. They want to know what's happening. They want to be very clear in their minds about what's happening. A lot of the patients who come privately, for example, and even on the NHS, they just want to know that, yes, I'm having my scan in 1 week or 2 weeks or whatever. So that is very, very important to patients. And the fine touch, also very important. Is this consultant listening to the other things that I have to say? Is this consultant engaging with the other people who are looking after me? So those are the important things. So your front door, I think, is very, very important. Your PA secretary, and like I said, communication, so important. Patients want to, be sure that you are communicating with them as quickly and promptly as possible.
Yeah, 100%. And what systems or structures do you think every consultant needs if they want consistent private growth?
Your availability is one. I think most consultants are probably available, and it's just thinking about times when you have clinics. So I think one big thing, particularly with private practice, is having evening clinics. I think that's so important. You probably need at least one, probably 2 evening clinics, because most patients may not necessarily want to take time off work to come and see you. So that's one big one. I'm just thinking about what else. Engaging with the private hospitals is important. Thinking about what big bottlenecks really stand in the way. Surprisingly, I think it's back to the admin again, actually. I think it's the admin. I think it's the PA, the secretary. I think a very poor admin would really pull things down significantly. Dictating letters not getting to the patient until about 2 or 3 weeks after they've been seen. It just doesn't come across very nicely. I think the admin is very important. I would say you've got the patients, everything's there, very poor admin. I think that will pull things down very badly.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I completely agree. How important is online visibility now, consultants who want to grow private?
Very, very, very important. Most private patients, I would say probably 60, 70, 80% of them will research the consultant that they're going to see before. And if they can't see that person online or can't see anything about him, they would have second thoughts about that consultant. It's absolutely so important that they can, and if they don't, they need to be able to see something about that consultant, and they need to see something positive about that. So I would say, if you're going to rank it 9 out of 10, I would say at least 9 to 9.5 over 10.
Yeah, amazing. And then the last question is, and so from your perspective, what does the future of private practice growth look like for consultants over the next few years?
I think private practice would probably grow. I can't, except the NHS invests more. in the part of the country where I work in Sheffield, I would say at least about 30-40% of the patients are coming to see a consultant privately because they're not getting what they want on the NHS. And unless the NHS invests heavily in more staff, I think that private practice would continue to grow. The self-pay market, with all indices and all statistics everywhere, is growing. And except the NHS invests, yes, that I see I think there's going to be more growth, particularly with the self-paying patients. I think more people are getting insured just in case they have a problem somewhere down the line. It will definitely grow. But more importantly is the fact that consultants who improve their visibility, who make sure that they're seen, are more likely going to benefit from the growth, both the self-pay and the insured market.
Yeah.